This is Feminist Wellness, and I'm your host, nurse practitioner, functional medicine expert, and life coach, Victoria Albina. I'll show you how to get unstuck, drop the anxiety, perfectionism, and codependency so you can live from your beautiful heart. Welcome, my love. Let's get started. Hello, my love. I hope this finds you doing so well. This week, I am bringing you another tale of magnificent transformation from a member of the Anchored community. Monica Schrock is a phenomenal copywriter, a glorious, amazing human, a basketball superstar, and has been such a delight to work with in Anchored. And to see their transformation has been mind-blowing, heart-opening, just such a gift. Every single day, I'm just blown away by the amazing humans I get to work with in Anchored, and I'm so grateful. And it is from that gratitude that I share this conversation that Mon and I recently had about their experience in Anchored and everything they've been able to accomplish from this profound new self-love and self-trust that they've stepped into through this process, through somatics, thought work, breath work, and the amazing Anchored community. And I share this because I remember back in the day when I was so mired in my own codependent, perfectionist, and people-pleasing habits, when I was so detached from myself. I didn't have models. I didn't have role models of people who had overcome these habits and who could testify from the other side just how amazing life can be when we step into our embodiment and our power. And Monica is an example of exactly that. And so I share this in the hopes of inspiring you to really think about how beautiful your life can be. And which is not to say your life isn't beautiful, like, come on, but just to really inspire you to see what is possible. And Monica is an example of that. So I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I will let them take it away. Hello, Monica. Welcome to the show.
Hello. So stoked to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So I'd love to invite you to introduce yourself, to tell the people who you are and what you do, and your pronouns, of course.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Monica. Yeah, I'm a freelance marketer is what I do. I do copywriting and marketing, and I love basketball, and my pronouns are they, them, or she, her. And I live on unceded Cowlitz land in Vancouver, Washington, calling in from. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be here and to talk to one of my favorite people.
Aw, the feeling's so mutual. So you were in the very first group of Anchored. Yeah, you're in the debut group of the latest iteration.
I forgot about that.
I know, right? It's like 1,000 years ago, really.
Yeah. Was it only 2 though?
Yeah.
Wow. Which does feel like 1,000 years.
It does feel like 1,000 years ago because it's like pandemic years. So those are like dog years. So you multiply by 7.
Exactly.
I guess it was 14
So
years
it's at least
ago,
14.
But it was 2020 was when all my programs and years of teaching came together in this latest iteration, which is Anchored. So
May 2020, much needed for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So tell me, why did you decide to join Anchored? What made you interested in the program?
Yeah. Well, I was introduced to you, funnily enough, by I think 2 people that I knew. And I just had watched a few of your Instagram things and checked you out. And I think one of my old colleagues, y'all were in a breathwork. Yeah. Maybe I don't know, breathwork group or something together. And she had told me so much about you. And I was just like, oh, wow, this sounds like something that I'd be interested in, especially for the anxiety portion of it, which is what kind of brought me in. I was like, oh, I know I have anxiety and this looks helpful. And then we started working together a little bit. And then I was able to learn even more about what you do. And more I read about the program and what you were developing. I was like, oh, and there was a moment where I was like, oh, I'm not a codependent person. I don't and then I read one of your explanations of the codependent parent dynamic and how that impacts the child. And I was like, oh, that's me. Okay, here we are. And so when you had talked to me about it, I was like, okay, anxiety, codependency, people pleasing, perfectionism. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Sounds great. I'd rather not any of those. So let's do it.
When given the option, I'd rather not any of those.
Not. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So the mix of your vibe, your like, qualifications, the way you move through the world, plus the way I had been moving through the world and my lived experience all contributed to me joining the group program.
Right on. And so what were your favorite takeaways from being an Anchored?
Oh man, there's a few phrases that and you even said it to me again on a coaching call yesterday. So I even forget the phrases sometimes, but there are a few phrases I even say to myself still that I remember from Anchored, from when we were going through the program, not from the alumni portion of it. One is, what if that wasn't a problem? Which I say to myself all the time. Certain situations, it leaves my mind and I'm like, but this is a problem. And then I come back to the call and you're like, but it's not, which is really helpful. And another one that really gut punched me when you said it in a good way was, you can't achieve your way to loving yourself. Which really kind of, and I'm getting there with it. It's a hard conditioning to deprogram after chasing that for a long time. But that was something that was a huge takeaway. I was like, oh, all of this for other people isn't going to help me love myself.
Right.
So that was a huge one too. And I think another one is that I tell myself all the time, I mean, all these like little gems, but really are the big things that like takeaways that help me get through like moments is, you can't control other people's thoughts, but you do not have to be available for them.
Right.
Was a huge one for me. I'm like, okay, I don't have to be available for that. Whatever story that person's writing about me in their own mind is not mine, which was a huge one for me. And just like worrying what people think about me in certain situations. In certain situations, I don't care, but certain people, what they think about me, and just being like, they're important people in your life, where you're just like, but I still can't control their thoughts, even though they're really close to me and really important to me, which is a big takeaway because they have the most impact usually on me.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that makes mammalian sense though, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Lizard brain sense.
Right. Yeah. I remember when that clicked for me that like, as a mammal, of course I want the people in my pack to care about me, to love me, to protect and defend me when the marauders come, right? Like that makes
I need them
in science. I need them. I literally need them. And my nervous system needs them, right? To co-regulate with. And they can have their own storyline. And that can be okay.
That can be okay.
Right.
Yeah. And I can have my own and that can be okay. It was like the main thing for me.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. It's that line between like, I can care about what they think without taking it on and making it my problem.
Yes. And all those things, I think the biggest takeaways from Anchored, honestly, and this went farther into like being in the alumni program for the last year and a half. I think the biggest takeaways have been like really just breaking away from that, like being able to like have my own storyline and think about my own identity and my own experiences, which I was constantly just minimizing constantly and not talking about because of just, dynamics with like parents and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me is like, oh, I can like be clear that like I'm non-binary and I'm bisexual. And another big thing was like seeking help for like mental health stuff that I wasn't able to kind of like see before. So those are like, I think the hugest takeaways from the program. Yeah. Which are pretty big.
I mean, codependent thinking, perfectionism, people pleasing, they all thrive in this veil of inauthenticity.
Yeah.
Right. Because you cannot possibly be the fullest expression of yourself and continue on in those habits. Right. They cannot work. They are mutually exclusive. Yeah. Right. Because they demand that we be someone else for everyone else.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I love what you're saying about a return to authenticity and thus being able to claim these multiple beautiful identities that are a representation of all that is Monica.
Yeah, it's so true. And you know what's funny is when I shared with people closest to me, they were like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, duh.
Duh.
I'm like, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
They were like so happy for you though, but
totally. Yeah. But also duh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Right. Because we create these whole stories because we catastrophize, we globalize, we go to black and white, all or nothing thinking.
Yeah. And that binary thinking.
Ooh. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are the things that helped you to step out of those kinds of habits and step into this authentic version of you? That's so dope, by the way.
Oh, it feels so good. It really does.
Yeah. You're like
even just expressing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much, so shiny, even just expressing it outwardly and just feeling safe to do that. Cause I think for me, I'm like, I'm 35 and I just found out these things really like authentically. I knew, but I'm just being able to like express it outwardly a lot more. And I'm just like, I just want to talk about it because it's just like, it's so empowering. Like I saw people in my life who were able to step into being more authentic and that helped me. And then having the space to not people please and be perfect for other people in Anchored, like really helped with that. It's like definitely an intersection. I did an identity workshop for a board that I'm on for a nonprofit. And that was like and when they were like, write down your identities. And it was like, are you cisgender? Are you? And I was like, I started writing and I was like, what? Because I'd never written it down before. I'd never like written down my identities, which is like, and in that moment I was like, oh my gosh. And that was like smack dab in the middle of being an Anchored. So it was like a very intersectional experience for how that happened.
For sure.
But yeah, I think it was just kind of also, I don't know, as the pandemic has been definitely eye-opening in that sense where I was just like, I don't know, it made a lot of people stop and think about their stuff. Yeah. I think is like the most simple way of like saying it. Right. And even though I didn't get to stop professionally, I was very busy, which I'm both fortunate for, but also it was tiring. I still had this like kind of moment at the end of 2020 where I was like, what is happening with me? And like, I need to like take a moment and think about it. And because of all the tools that you've given us in Anchored, it was a lot easier for me to work through it, I think.
Yeah. So can you tell us about those tools?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, the thought work protocol is very helpful because I am a very internal processor, as you might have gathered. It takes me a while sometimes to come on somewhere and like talk about something. So having that tool to be able to do that before I come on the call or I decide to talk to someone in my life about it, or I don't even have to because I do it. And then I'm like, okay, is really, really helpful, especially with just patterns that I've done my whole life because they're just the patterns or people I've let into my life my whole life because it's the pattern.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then being like, wait a minute, I've seen this before from myself or someone else. This usually doesn't work out well. So that's the huge one. And then, what's funny that the somatic practices that you've given us for tools too was something I wasn't catching on to in the beginning because not that they weren't great, because they were great. And I was like, I know this should be working, but I just like couldn't feel my body at all. And so that was like a combination of some other mental health stuff that now I can like feel my body and feel the feelings in my body. So those tools you gave us are like really helping me now. And it's really jarring at times. But not the tools, but just the feelings. Oh, okay. I was like, the feelings are very jarring. So the somatic practices are really helpful in those moments where it's like, feel the ground, like, what sounds do you hear? Like, what are you feeling? What are you hearing? What are you, all the senses. So I can like kind of just get back to, okay, I'm okay. I'm here. Yeah. That's really helpful.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah. Orienting is one of my favorite nervous system exercises. It's so simple. Yeah. And I find, particularly with somatics, the more simple it is, for me, the more effective, right? Like my nervous system wants these things to be incredibly simple. And when we remember the science that in an activation, whether we're going into sympathetic or to dorsal, your nervous system, your mind, your body forgets who, when, and where you are. Yeah. Because it's going into an old story, right?
Yeah.
And so orienting, looking around what you're describing, naming what you can perceive with your senses, what you can feel, just reminds your body like, okay, I am me. I am here. Right. We're good. Yeah.
Yeah. And the breath work, that reminds me of the breath work. I forget to breathe all the time. Like sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, Monica, like breathe. Why are you holding your breath right now? So not helpful. So the breath work like sessions have just really helped, remind me in like just everyday life. Like you need to breathe. Like, I even have a Post-it on my monitor that's like, just says breathe.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. We need those simple reminders, right? Yeah.
Water and breathing,
Water and breathing. Yeah. We're just taller toddlers, right?
We are.
We really are taller toddlers.
We really are.
So I know you loved being in the anchored community, in the familia. I know that you've kept these close connections with people from your cohort. Tell us about the experience of being in that group, because people get nervous, which makes sense. And they say like, I don't know these people. Am I going to share this vulnerable stuff with them? Will they be kind? Right.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
And I know you're introvert identified too. So
that's true. That is true. That is true. But the group doesn't feel like it doesn't have an extroverted energy. It really doesn't. Like, I definitely don't get drained from having interactions with folks. And it being on Slack, really helps, because you really get to decide how much interacting you're doing regularly. Like, the coaching calls, like you're there, but it's mostly still chat, because it's like, it's webinar style. So we're not just in like a bunch of squares talking about vulnerable things.
Right.
That
would be so terrible.
That would be so terrible.
Brady Bunch would be the worst format. Oh my God. Yeah. That would be like trauma uninformed 101.
Yeah. 101.
Exactly. Style. Yeah. Not having it. Yeah.
So no Brady Bunch style sharing with a bunch of people looking at you. Or at least you seeing a bunch of people.
Right. Like filing their nails, drinking coffee, yelling at the dog. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's not a rule that you need to be on camera, even if you're on a coaching call. You know what I mean? Right. Like, these are the options we have. But also, I've never ever has ever an unkind thing happened in the community or group. Everyone is so supportive of what everyone, because I think also like, even like personal experience, universal experience, like even if what someone's sharing isn't exactly what we've experienced, like, we're coming here for similar situations. So it's something that we can see ourselves in too. So I don't know, there's just like a camaraderie there too, where it's just like, and even if we don't, like, it's not a place to get unsolicited advice. It's a place to just support each other through those moments. And I love when you ask us kind of like, what do we do in certain situations so we can share our thing, and it's not advice, it's just us sharing our thing, which is really great. And then, a few people I've, I went through the first cohort with, just keeping in touch outside of the group. I mean, a lot of us are still in the group, which is great. And just like, even like working together and like having coffee chats outside, and just, just, it's very bonding, and not in a bad way, not in like a trauma bonding way, like in a good way. Right. It's like a distinction.
No, I think it's a really important one to make. Don't come here to get enmeshed. You just come here for more love.
For more love. And it's just, I don't think this is probably the only place that not probably, it is 100% the only place that I've felt okay sharing like really hard things. And, it's like, I remember one call when I was just like bawling because I couldn't figure out what was going on with myself, and like, have always been scared to talk about like what my brain's doing. And I just like knew in that moment, whenever I share about it at all, I'm like, oh my God, like someone's going to lock me up somewhere. But when I shared with you, I was like, I know this is going to be okay. So I think that just kind of speaks volumes to like the nature of the space that you've created for us.
Thank you. I'm honored by that. Yeah. So what would you say? So if you think about what things were like concretely before Anchored and what things are like now, what has changed in your life?
Oh, yeah. I just like, I feel like everything else in the world that's happening, including relationships, including anything in the world that's happening, does not determine my feelings, like does not determine my thoughts. Like I can like regulate those on my own, which is huge because I think, you know, with the amount of anxiety I was experiencing, it was just like one tiny thing. And like, you know, I could like spiral for the rest of the day. And then my day was pretty ruined, to be honest. Or one thing that, you know, my mom would say, or if someone said something that reminded me of another situation would just kind of like throw me off. And now I have the tools to not be thrown off for the entire day. And if something happens, I can just be like, okay, you know, even something as simple as, and I think it's like these simple things are really powerful where it's like, if I see an email that's a little bit like jarring or passive aggressive or something, you know, something we just experience, I can just look at it and be like, cool, I'm going to deal with that later when I deal with that. And I don't think about it until I deal with it, which is huge for me. And I think even the small things like seeing a piece of mail when my like US Postal Service like preview comes up that says like, you know, it's from the government or it's from the like tax board or something. Like I'm not like freaking out the whole day before it gets here, which I know those are small things, but
they're
like,
huge though.
They're huge things. Yeah.
I mean, I always say it's the quotidian bullshit that makes up a life, right?
Yeah.
It's those little everyday things.
Yeah. That just stack up. They just stack up. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, if we think about from a nervous system point of view and we think about our window of what the literature calls the window of tolerance, but our window of capacity to manage life and stay regulated in ventral vagal, all of those little things, right, put like another drop of stress into the cup. Yeah. And another drop and another drop. And then you're so much more likely to go into sympathetic and go into fight or flight, freak out, anxiety, worry, or just like collapse on the couch, foot on the brake and dorsal, right?
Yeah. Ooh, I was there a lot. I was there a lot before. Yeah. Like a lot of numbing, a lot of not like, just can't face the feeling. Oh, there was another takeaway from the program that I just thought about, which is huge for like this part of like how it's changed my life. Right. Is you know, I was always like, I'm anxious. And I remember you telling me like, okay, you know, asking, of course, you always ask if you can share, if you can like just say something very candidly. And I'm like, of course, that's my style. I just like to be, right. Just tell me. Yeah. And you were like, think that your cover up emotion is anxiety. So I'm going to ask you to really think about how you're feeling right now, which was like huge because only I think, you know, it took a while, but then I was like, oh, I'm angry. Like, I'm actually angry. I'm not anxious. Like, I'm really mad right now, which was like really good to feel after just being anxious about everything for so long. Or like, oh, I'm really sad, you know, which is something just like, I just try to like block out entirely for so long, you know, like, oh, but you know, for many reasons. Right. And that's been a huge, huge change in my life. And I think just being like, what if that wasn't a problem is a huge one because like, you know, it's that things being a problem has deterred me in the past of like experiencing a lot of things and enjoying a lot of things and just saying yes to things that I would normally, you know, kind of say no to. Cause I was like, oh, I don't, you know, all the like future tripping in my mind about whatever thing, you know? So experience wise, like having, you know, more experiences, more fun, less anxiety, being able to like kind of relearn relationships in my life with people and not be as impacted by their thoughts or their behavior towards me, I think is a huge one too. Yeah. Yeah. Those are all super huge. I mean, I have loved being, you know, getting to bear witness to you learning to map your nervous system. Thanks. And to connect, and to see your thoughts and to not just name the feelings under it. I watched you be able to feel the feelings under it. Yeah. Which is like, that's a big difference. Not happening. No, it was not. It was not. No. And of course, no judgment there, right? That's why you did anchor it. Like, that's legit the point. Like, come in and learn to live in your whole body, right? Yeah. Not just from the neck up. But oh my gosh. And the other huge thing is like how much my body has improved from it. Just like feeling wise, like, you know, I was an athlete for so long and for the last however many years, my body's been like a very foreign object to me. And it's like getting back into it and feeling it and being able to like kind of nurture it and move it is massive, you know? Yeah. And what has helped you? Was it the somatics? What helped you to be able to do that? Yeah, I think it was definitely the somatics, like really just taking time to feel my body a little bit and not just being like, oh, I don't have time for this.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't have time for this. My brain is just too much to deal with. I don't have time to deal with my body. Yeah. Was a huge one.
Yeah. You know, I've never heard it really said exactly like that managing your mind gives you the time and space to attend to your body. But I feel like that's what I just heard.
Yeah. It was huge. Like I was so busy managing my mind that my body was just like, no way, I can't even think about it, which I knew they were connected. I wasn't like unaware. Right. But I just like I couldn't do it. So being able to manage my mind and not have those reactions to circumstances in my life, I could just be like, okay, I'm going to take care of my like whole body now. And I'm not going to worry about that and have that occupy my time and take away from my time with me.
Right.
And like another huge thing was just, you know, that self-trust factor that we like work on reinstating after so long of like, you know, self-abandonment and things like that is huge. Like being like, you know, because again, as like a college athlete and being that for so long, I was like, oh, I can just go into doing what I used to do.
Right.
But I'm like, yeah, cool. I'm not 25. I'm 35 and that's fine. You know, that's totally fine. But also I'm not going to be doing what I used to do. And instead of being like, I'm going to do this many times a week for this much time and then not doing it. And then being like, well, you suck and you didn't do that. So we're not doing that anymore because you can't do it. Right. It's more like, okay, let's just like start here. And if I can do that for a little while, then we can like up it, but let's do a little for consistently. Cause that's better than doing nothing consistently.
Totally. Yeah. So it sounds to me like you learned how to take kitten steps.
Yes.
Towards your own goals, right? Yeah. Instead of spinning in a perfectionist fantasy in which you have to be perfect or forget about it.
And do it right the first time.
Ooh,
like, or do it right. Like whatever that means. I'm doing quotes right now, everyone. Do it right the first time, which is whatever someone else's version of right. I mean, that's helped with writing too, of just me totally being like, cool. My job is to create a draft of something because I do copywriting.
Yep.
And I've learned from years of doing it that sometimes when I write a draft of something, that could mean that someone just saw something they don't want, which we both didn't know until I wrote it. Which is like a perfectionist me could just really reel on that, you know, it just for a long and then not want to like, and then feel like just resistant to fixing it because I'm scared of it not being right again, you know?
Right. Totally.
Which now I'm like, okay, like, cool. This is part of the process. Like now we know this isn't what you want. Now we're going to get the knowledge out a little more that I need to give you what you want. And then we're moving on. I'm confident that we'll get what we want in the end. And that's something that's just like so much easier to work with for myself because it's like, and you know, being consistent is such a thing. I've heard so many, like, it's just a thing we hear all the time in our life, like being consistent, which I know is a good thing. But what I learned in your program too, is like, sometimes people are being consistent in a way that we think is not consistent, but they are consistent in the way that their behavior is. And maybe it's not like, it doesn't serve us. Like I remember in a call, you were like, no, this person is being consistent. They are showing you that this is them. Like, you know, that they don't. Yeah. Which was like a huge, tangent, but takeaway was like
important.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, this person is being consistent. They're not being inconsistent. They're being inconsistent in the way that I want them to behave towards me, but they actually are being consistent in the way they actually treat me.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that points to an important thing we learned in Anchored, which is to start to see what we're tolerating in life that doesn't serve us and what we're putting up with, what we continue to say yes to, because it's one of the core lessons, right? Because if we don't believe in our self-worth, then like, of course it's fine if we're treated like crap again and again, right? Like, that's fine.
And sometimes it feels subtle. It feels subtle sometimes, you know, where you're just like, wait a minute. Yeah. I had a friend where I was like, oh, this person, I brought them up in a couple of calls and I was like, oh, this person is consistently like putting me down, but in a very like backhanded way, you know? And now I've walked away from that because I'm like, dude, I'm not here to make you feel better about yourself in whatever way you're doing that.
Right.
So it's just like those small behaviors that I was like, oh, well, that person's just like going through a thing and it's like, fine, you know, like, of course they would treat me that way. And of course it's okay because I'm used to being like that person for people. But like now it's like, oh no, I'm not doing that. Whatever insecurities are happening, like I can't be the one to like make you feel better about them. It's not my role. It's not going to be my role anymore.
Yeah. And I think, that's a thing. And also, of course, the neighbors now mowing the lawn, like right next door. So anyone who can hear a lawnmower, that's life. I traded in Brooklyn sirens for the Hudson Valley's lawnmowers. It's fine.
Always something.
Always something, Well, yeah. So that made me think about roles, right? Mm-hmm. And when all the inner child work we do in Anchored of looking at our childhood roles and how they're showing up in adulthood.
I mean, it's the same. It was the same for me. What I did for someone in my childhood is what I've like continuously seen as with friends. I'm like, oh, there's where I'm that person. Yeah, because it's normal. And like, I don't want to say comfortable because it was not comfortable, but it was. I mean, it was normal for me. It was my normal in a way where I was just like, oh yeah, someone feels bad about themselves and like, I can take it because like, I don't feel bad about myself. Right. but then it's like, no, I'd rather support you in working through that if you want me to be here to listen to you, but I don't want to be the person that you put down so you can lift yourself up. Like that's
not
cool.
Not okay. Yeah. Yeah. And
even if you hide it with a compliment, but it's not really a compliment.
It's not cool. Yeah. And it's pretty awesome to see folks, there's a channel in our Slack group about asking for help and getting it and asking for help and hearing no.
Yeah.
What was your experience with those kind of things?
Oh, I love that because I'm not great at asking for help, as I think is maybe like a common thread.
Super common. I mean, it's us, right?
It's us. Yeah. It's us. Yeah. It's us. And just like kind of conditioned, through that codependent cycle of childhood that like, there is no help available. So, you got to figure it out, which I know now is not the case. So being able to practice that, because I think it's like, a lot of times we'll see, snippets of things on like Instagram or read an article that's like, when you're feeling this way, ask for help or do these things. And you're like, yeah, cool. But like, I've never done that. So I don't really know where to start. Like, do I just do it? Do I just ask?
Right. Will the world end?
Will the world end? Will someone, say no, which they might, but it's like, will someone say no and I'll never ask again? Like that kind of vibe. Right. So it's like having that place to practice in either direction was really helpful to be like, it's that like practice of like, of rejection in general, or like, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get the help you need, or you're not going to get the job, or you're not going to get the thing. It's just kind of like practicing that like dynamic, I think, and it not shutting me down.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that rejection wound. Yeah.
It's deep. It can be deep.
It can be deep, which is why we go in there with the somatics. Cause I love thought work. I'm all about thought work, but I don't think it works when the wound is that kind of a core childhood wound, like it's not enough often. Yeah.
And then that wound of like goes back into that, like, you can't achieve your way to loving yourself thing. Cause that wound for me was like, oh, I'm going to reach farther. I'm going to do more. I'm going to try harder, because even though I know this will never be enough for them.
Right.
So why am I doing that? Is this enough for me? I think is like where I've come to like, I don't care if it's enough for you because it's enough for me.
Yeah.
And if you need someone else to give you that level of whatever thing, then that's cool. It doesn't have to be me. I'm not everything to everyone, and I'm fine with that. Yeah.
I love that reframe.
Yeah.
It's
right.
So
thanks for teaching me that.
Hey, my pleasure. Always here for it. Always here for it. Yeah.
It's that authenticity, right? Coming back to that, like, that's what it is. Like, this is me. Like, this is what I'm willing to do. And this is what I'm not willing to do.
Yeah.
This is who I am. Yeah. Maybe that'll change.
Yeah. You might want to do the thing at some point, but right now you're not available. Yeah. And what are the things that helped you to get in touch with that authenticity and to like really connect with it?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the like managing of the mind was huge for sure, because without being able to do that, I was just like spiraling a lot of the time. And there's no like space to think about who you are and what you want when you're just spiraling about little and big things that happen to you throughout the day, So that was a huge one, to stop spiraling about all those things, because then I could sit and really think about it. And, I think also the people around me who are very supportive, in the group and in my life, and being able to see who those supportive people are in my life because of learning these tools in the group was huge, where I'm like, I know who I feel safe to share things with and who I feel safe to talk things through with in my life also.
Yeah.
And that was really, really helpful to do that. And then also just kind of like realizing that, not that I needed this but it's just like sometimes validation is something, like we're humans and validation is helpful. And I think realizing that what people liked about me, that like everyone always tells me is like, oh, you're just so you just do whatever you want. And you're just like, you're not worried about like trends or like what, anything like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I do. And I don't see that sometimes because I'm too worked up in my mind, too amped up. But like just hearing that from other people, I was like, oh, yeah, that is like how I move through the world. And I can just own that. Like, I don't really have to fake anything anymore. Like, or put on or feel like I'm too much for people, or feel like, because of like who I am and my experience, that I have to like minimize or like dim myself. Like I'm just, no, because that's, people don't see me then. And people see me when I don't dim myself, and I want to be seen. I wasn't seen for so long.
Right. And I think that's one of my most favoritist things that happens in Anchored is the mirroring.
Yeah.
Like, it is validating, but to me, it doesn't feel like validation.
Yeah.
Because it's not filling that hole in your heart that says I'm not worthy. It's like, hey, here's a mirror. Monica, you're friggin' amazing. We see it. Do you see it? We see it.
Yeah. It's so true. It is validating. Yeah. And then you get to just kind of like do that for yourself.
Yeah. And practice receiving it, which I think can be so.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Really just threw that in there.
Sorry, monkey wrench, but.
Yeah, the receiving part, that was definitely hard. That's the hardest part for me. Yeah. Yeah. But I've been practicing it and just saying thank you, not like self-deprecating afterwards, not having to like throw a compliment back because I feel bad.
Right.
Just saying thank you.
Saying thank you.
Your head's really in nice shape. Thank you.
I don't think there's a better compliment on this planet. You have a nice head shape. I mean,
you have a nice head shape.
It's really, I've been striving towards that for. No.
I think that's just a forever thing, whatever our head shape is.
It's hilarious. I love how our brains, that your brain was like, what's a great compliment? You have a superlative head shape.
Superlative head shape. I know people will see, for the people that won't see this on Instagram, I have a very buzzed head right now.
Yes,
so
it is.
Yeah, so it is
prominent. And you do. I mean, I won't deny it. You have a superlative head shape, but
thank you.
Yeah, you have a good hairline too.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's important. It is. Look at you practicing. How did it feel in your body?
It felt really good. Yeah, it felt really good. Yeah.
Nice.
I like that. Yeah, compliments are nice. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, compliments are nice for me now because I can take them.
Yes,
I can take them in. They used to give me all sorts of like that low grade sympathetic, like,
yeah. Like before it was like, no, I'm not. I don't have a nice head shape.
Right.
No, I'm not pretty.
Right.
No, whatever. Yeah.
So you'd go to negating. I would go to this feeling of obligation, like, crap, now I have to compliment you.
Oh, that too. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do
like,
it.
Even if I want to, unless it's earnest. If it's really earnest, like I will, and I will do more of that. Just like I will give more of that out of the blue now because I'm like, I mean, but I don't know. Hopefully, they like it too. But if not, that's like, okay, whatever, however way they receive it right now. It's totally fine. Totally fine. But I also felt that where I was like, oh, I have to find something. Right. And not that but also like I felt, and then I go even like a step further and be like, are they going to think this is genuine? Are they going to think you're just throwing them a compliment because you threw them, they threw you a compliment. And then it's this weird dynamic. And then if they throw you a compliment, that's like, I can tell is an insecurity for them. Then I just totally seized up and didn't know what to do. Like it was just like, now I'm like, that's not mine. Thank you. I do have a nice shaped head.
Right. Yeah. I love how we go like from our codependent thinking from like 27 different layers of mind reading. Right. And like, like reading their body energy, really their facial energy, really fast, really nervous system fast.
Yeah.
Just like staying in our own bodies. like staying in our own embodiment in those moments.
Yeah. Like, I'm not going into your body. I'm going to stay here.
I'm going to stay here. Right over here. It's pretty dope.
Pretty dope. Yeah. Very, very cool. Very cool. Very just, I mean, yeah, it's just life-changing is the word, really. I mean, there's been a bunch of tools that have just in the last 2 years have like changed my life for sure. And people can tell also, not that that is like the end all be all of it, but people have definitely like been like, I can tell, like you're being like, you're just being you, you're doing what you want to do. You feel like they're like, I can feel that you're happy. And it before, like they couldn't like, well, I mean, I wasn't, so they weren't wrong. But yeah,
right. Like, they read you correctly.
Like, they read it correctly, but they're just like, I can feel that you're just doing your thing. And that's like, that's who I am. That's like, you know, that's what I've done for so long. And it just was like lost for a while. And I think it needed to be for me to, you know, deal with those deep wounds and break those patterns that were making it harder for me to be me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's a good feeling.
Oh, it's so beautiful to see you reclaiming your life, your sense of self, your sense of worth, your relationships from your family blueprint, from the patriarchy, from all of your conditioning and socialization, codependency. I mean, it's amazing.
It's a lot. A lot. And just being grateful to like more grateful to myself for, you know, getting through some really tough conditioning, like you said, identity things from growing up in a place that did not validate my existence,
right?
My full identity.
Right.
And just like being grateful to my body for getting me through this far, being grateful to myself for just like, you know, resiliency is like a hard thing in general, but just like, you know, being like, wow, you did this while you were feeling that bad. And we don't want to do that again.
Right.
At all. But like, thank you for keeping your life here in this, like in a state that is manageable to repair. You know what I mean? Like it's not a reality all the time. No. So I'm very grateful to myself.
I'm super grateful to you too.
Yeah.
So then I'm curious, from all of that conditioning and all of those stories, what led you to be able to invest in yourself and to say, I'm worth spending time, money, financial resources on in this big way?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I think like, cause it's a hard one.
Yeah.
Right. It's a hard moment for a lot of us. Capitalism makes it hard sometimes.
Yeah,
it does. But I think, you know, I think for so long, I don't know what the like catalyst was. And maybe it was just like watching and listening to your stuff. It probably was, you know, because for so long, I put resources into like other people and other things and things that weren't me.
Right.
And things that were just kind of like, you know, this is the life you should have. But I'm like, yeah, but I'm not happy with it. So like, why am I putting all this time and resources and energy into, you know, just patterns that didn't serve me, to things that were just, you know, we're part of the numbing. We're part of the like, you know, just part of, you know, the kind of like, I mean, we've talked about like, I mean, for me, it wasn't so much like shopping, but it was those things where it's like, when you're feeling really bad, you like buy something and it's that kind of like dopamine shot that you're like, ooh, or like other dopamine shots, like not actual shots, but like, you know, you know, just moments of dopamine surges that you just try to get because you're, you know, and I'm like, I want to be able to like call this in or move through things a lot easier. And I think for me at that point, 2 years ago, my relationship with money was still fairly complicated. It's way less complicated now. And I think I can contribute a lot of that to Anchored and also, 100%. Actually, I was going to see if there's anything else, but I don't think so, because it's like managing the mind has made me really understand like my self-worth and like what I want to do, what I don't want to do, what the value of my work is. Like before, I was just so anxious about not getting work and about, you know, I lived in Los Angeles and there were moments where I had like $4 in my bank account or nothing in my bank account, or, you know, there were moments that were, but I wasn't able to get out of that thinking about like money and about my relationship with it and about what is possible and what I could make room for without managing my mind. So I think it was just a moment where I was like, this seems super legit. And I like the vibe, and I've invested in like my business before. I've invested in, and I'm like, it's time to invest in myself, which I think feel like maybe it's kind of cliche, but also I think it's that moment where it's like, what's more important to me than me and how I interact with the world? Like, there's literally nothing like more important than that.
Yeah.
When I looked at all the support we were going to get, like the investment, I'm like, yeah, that checks out. Like, we're getting a lot of support. We're getting a lot of tools that are, I now know are life-changing. So I, had a little leap of faith, but it was an educated leap. I wasn't like, and it worked out. So I think, for me, it was a culmination of like being sick and tired of my patterns and my relationship with spending money.
Right.
Myself.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who's having some nervousness, some trepidation about joining the program?
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely like talked to friends about it before, and like, because they've seen the change in me too, and it's like, everyone's ready when they're ready. But I think I would say, like, choose yourself above all, because you can't have the relationships you want with anything, with the world, with people in your life, with yourself, with your work, with your play, with anything, with, your intimacy, like anything, if you don't have that with yourself. So I think like, think about what you really want your life to be and just know that this program can change it, I think is like what I don't think I've seen anyone in the alumni group whose life hasn't been completely transformed and now has a space to, when those like kind of like obstacles come up, like move through them faster with more ease, with a community that knows what we're going through. I think that in itself is something that, like, if you're nervous about it, know that like there's a lot of other people there that are working through this stuff, and Victoria's there, and you're going to get through it faster. Those moments that are like agonizing now won't be. And I think that's like the biggest thing I could tell someone.
Thank you so much for that, Monica.
Yeah. My pleasure.
And thank you for being a part of Anchored. It really has been such a gift and a privilege. And I feel so grateful to know you and to have been by your side on this journey.
Thank you. I just got goosebumps. I want you to know, because I'm like, it's been a journey, and I'm just, it's so validating to be like seen by you and know that you see what I was going through, or you saw what I was going through and see it now. And it's just like, I don't think you know how much it's meant, but it has.
Thank you. Yeah. So you do amazing work in the world. Where can the good people find you?
Oh, yeah.
What are you up to?
What are we doing?
Yeah. You have a new project coming up soon, right?
I have a new project coming up. Yes. It's really exciting. So I've been a freelance service provider with marketing and copywriting since I was 20 years old, and I'm now 35. So that's a good 15 years.
Yeah, it's a solid chunk of time.
That's a solid chunk of time. And I've really enjoyed it. I really like it. And I help, anywhere from nonprofits to small businesses to entrepreneurs, everyone in between. I like variety, which is why I do this.
Right.
And I've noticed that freelance service providers, don't have a lot of support in the world for how like kind of it's just a process that's hard to learn. People don't teach it. They don't teach like freelance service provider things we could know, like, things that support us, things that support clients, how to create packages, how to price ourselves, all these things that are not given to us. So I've created a program that helps freelance service providers do that, like create a foundation of how to position yourself in the world so you can get business as a copywriter or a marketer or a podcast manager or a graphic designer or a web developer, whatever your service is. And then have a community of support of getting through those tough things with clients or celebrating those great things in your career, in your personal life, and then being like, oh my gosh, like, how do I price this custom proposal? How do I do these things? I don't know. Or also referring business and getting business from other people. So it's called Square Up, because I'm all basketball all the time.
I love that.
There's a saying in basketball, like if you're not squared up to the basket, you can't shoot your shot. So that's pretty much what we're doing. Like, we're squaring you up to what you want so you can shoot your shot and you can, get consistent projects and clients with your freelance business. So I'm very excited about it. Yeah. And you can find it at unsociallyinclined.com. My business Instagram is unsociallyinclined. But also I invite people, you can follow me at Monica Schrock also. That's where I share things like personally and fun things. And I love to invite people to follow me there as well.
So fun. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Be well. Mwah. Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to that delightful conversation with Mon. Aren't they such a charmer? God, they're so great. And they are an example of what is possible when you dedicate yourself to the work in Anchored. If you have been contemplating joining us, if you are learning so much from the podcast and want my loving care and support, my guidance, my coaching, and the support of this beautiful, authentic, powerful community to take your life back, to change the way you relate to yourself and the world, you're going to want to join us for Anchored. Head on over to victoriaalbina.com/anchored to learn more, to fill out a short application, and to get on my schedule for a call with me to talk about all the details. I can't wait to read your application. I can't wait to talk with you. I can't wait to welcome you to the Anchored Familia, where you will be held with such love, such care. You will be a part of this incredible community of folks really doing this work to change our lives, to reclaim our tender ravioliness with joy, with embodiment, with agency. Oh, it's so exciting. I can't wait to see you there. victoriaalbina.com/anchored is the place to start. All right, my beauties, let's do what we do. Gentle hand on your heart, should you feel so moved. And remember, you are safe, you are held, you are loved. And when one of us heals, we help heal the world. Be well, my beauty. I'll talk to you soon. If you've been enjoying the show and learning a ton, it's time to apply it with my expert guidance so you can live life with intention without the anxiety, overwhelm, and resentment, so you can get unstuck. You're not going to want to miss the opportunity to join my exclusive, intimate group coaching program. So head on over to victoriaalbina.com/masterclass to grab your seat now. See you there. It's going to be a good one.